Welcome to the #1 show and the source of truth for all things MedTech. Here, we reveal the secrets and stories behind the investments, science, and commercialization of the MedTech industry. Every week, we'll take you on a wild ride with the biggest names in the game, from entrepreneurs and investors who are shaking up the market to healthcare providers who are revolutionizing the way we think and practice medicine. So hold on tight and get ready for a journey like no other. This is the State of MedTech. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the show. So we have another President's Club episode for you. You guys really love these episodes, and me too. And this time, this is a recommendation that came from Aaron Chester, who's the VP of Sales over at CONMED. He came to the Medical Sales Network Effects program and did a network grand rounds for us, which is essentially a private Zoom call with an expert. And afterwards, we were talking about people who just exemplify great leadership, great sales prowess. And he mentioned, he's like, "Oh, Omar, you got to have Sarah Lincoln on." And so I checked Sarah Lincoln out, and she has a phenomenal background. She started off at Stryker in the purchasing area. She was a buyer for their operations department, moved around in different roles from material manager to customer service, even supply chain and marketing. And then, after about 14 years into her medical device career, in 2013 decides that she's going to be a sales rep. And I want you to just consider how remarkable that is that somebody who's well into their career, they've established themselves, decides to start over as a sales rep, right? And for those of you who don't know, historically, in the mid to 2010 to 2015, they were really big building years for Stryker because Stryker was coming out of a really tough time with the economic collapse of '08. And, now their market cap is over $100 billion. Back then it was, I think, somewhere around 15 to 18, right? And so it was really tough times, and the standards are still high at Stryker, but especially back then. And not only did she succeed, she excelled. And let me read to you some of her accolades. Aside from winning President's Club, 2015, she grew her product line by 74%. 2014, exceeded quota by 124%. 2014, exceeded total services portfolio quota. And then that same year, Master Achiever Award recipient. Since then, she moved on to CONMED, where she's been for the last 7 years. She spent the first 5 years as territory manager for Advanced Surgical, and now she's a regional sales director. And so her experience is really phenomenal. She provides some great insights as to what it's like to make that shift in her career, what it took to be successful. And I think you'll get a lot of great insights from this episode. Now, if you are a rep and you want to get to the next level, I can't recommend enough to join my Medical Sales Network Effects program. What it is content that you have full access to for life, a private VIP group with CEOs, VPs, and other reps, even recruiters, and live weekly calls where you get to interface with me, ask me any questions you want. Here is a audio from one of the reps who's in that program. I masked the company just out of respect to the rep, even though he said it was okay, but just to kind of do that favor to him. This rep works for a major spinal implants company, and listen to what he had to say after a few weeks in the program and implementing one of the strategies.
I tried to reach out to this one surgeon. I posted recently on LinkedIn about launching a bunch of new products in this year, in 2023. He accepted my connection request, liked that comment, and 2 days later booked a case with this new technology that we had showed him 2 days later or 2 days prior. So it was all methodical steps. So, and the surgery yesterday went pretty well. He agreed to try it again. So I think from our standpoint, it was a win-win-win of getting the connection on LinkedIn to seeing our content, having a good inter-office meeting from a standpoint of being able to talk with the surgeon about the new technology and what his peer was doing, and then having a successful case where he would want to use the product again.
And I'll tell you what, I hear stories like that all the time. And let me be frank. Is every surgeon on LinkedIn and active where you can do this? No, definitely not. But here's what I would say is that if you're a rep, you have to consider two things. Number one, evolving and adapting your, arsenal of sales strategies. And part of that involves using digital. That doesn't just limit itself to LinkedIn. We talk about how do you do this through Twitter? How do you do this through email, through video sales letters? But also, as a rep, how do you package yourself? If you think about it, that LinkedIn profile is a product landing page. Just like when you look something up on Amazon, you go to that Amazon landing page for a $20 decision, and you're looking at reviews, you're looking at how many stars, if there's a lot of photos and everything. So if people are being conditioned to make a $20 decision on, let's say, a random product on Amazon to do that, you better believe they're making that same assumption when they try and make a 50, 100, 200,000, $500,000 decision to hire you as a sales leader, sales rep, marketing director, whatever it might be. And so it's more important than ever to really adopt these approaches and learn how to do it. So I would love for you to sign up for my program. I've made it super easy. So check the show notes below and click the link. You can actually just purchase directly into the program. I went ahead and discounted it as well because if you're a listener of the show, I want to reward you because you're obviously interested in improving yourself. And that's why you're listening to this episode. So that's my gift to you. So go ahead and click that link. It's going to take you straight to the purchase page and you can purchase right then and there. And if you want to have a little bit more of a discussion, you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer those questions. So with that being said, let's jump straight to the episode with Sarah Lincoln, President's Club winner over at CONMED. Enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show, and a big shout out to Red Hat Gang from All Hail Medical Sales. So this is another sales episode, and I'm very happy to be with Sarah Lincoln, who's regional sales director over at CONMED. There's a VP of sales there, Aaron Chester. By the time this show is being released, I think many of you are familiar with Aaron because he had done a network grand rounds, which is part of my program. And when I was speaking to him, I said, hey, Aaron, I'm always looking for like really awesome reps who've, really well decorated, just have a lot to share. I was like, who do you recommend? And of course, Aaron's got, he's had a long career and he recommended two names. And one of them was Sarah Lincoln, who is regional sales director over at CONMED Corp. And just to absolve everything, so that way we can just say whatever the hell we want on the show. This episode is in no way, shape, or form a reflection of the opinions or viewpoints that her employer has or previous employers, and all her stories are just unique to her. So that being said, let's kind of dive into it so you can really sort of open Pandora's box. Sarah, thanks for joining the show. How are you doing?
I'm great. That's an awesome introduction.
Isn't that an awesome introduction? And you know what? It's only going to be downhill from here because this is your first podcast. If you find somebody who gives a better intro than that, you got to tell me, because I've been practicing that for many years.
Well, thank you for saving it for me.
Oh, totally. And we kind of chatted it up earlier, but you've had like a great career. You spent time at CONMED and Stryker. You worked with the legendary, the iconic Jim Heath. And I know if he heard this episode, he's going to be upset and text me and be like, why did you say that? But Jim Heath is an iconic figure in our industry. And so before we kind of dive into it, again, you've won multiple President's Clubs. I want to unpack that. But let's start with the first thing, which is like, who is Sarah Lincoln? Where are you from? How did you get into this industry?
It's a great place to start, only because my story is probably a little unique. Everybody grows up with their background and goes off to college, and a lot of people these days have that figured out, hands down, what they're going to do, where they're going to go. I grew up honestly my mother worked two jobs. My dad worked in inner city Detroit, not a ton of supervision, and I just worked really hard in school. And the harder I worked, the more disciplined, I became at trying to get my grades at a C average, which if they find the humor in that, I only getting a C and I'm working really hard in elementary and in middle school. And as I got into high school, they're like, gosh, you're working really hard for these college prep classes. Are you sure? And I said, absolutely. This is what I want to do. It was the first one in my entire generation or my family to ever attend college. So that was pretty cool. And as I'm graduating, I got an interview. I was a supply chain major in business and then communications and marketing. And as I got my degree and I get to interview, I'm going off to interview at Stryker at the time. And it's 1997, May of 1997 was my graduation date. It's December that year prior, and I drive over to Kalamazoo from where I was going to school. And as I get there, and it was icy the whole way. I'm talking six, almost an inch thick. And it was so bad. The drive was so bad. I'm in my perfect little blue suit with my perfect little blue heels back then, 1997. And I finally get there. It was super dangerous. And I show up and it says, Stryker closed, ice storm, no power. And if there's nothing else that defines my personality than what I'm about to say, you'll never understand who I am, because I literally was like, hell no. I just drove here. I got the suit on. I have an interview at Stryker and you're going to interview me. And I knocked on the door and no one answered. And I knocked on the door until the head of HR actually came to the door. And he's like, we're closed. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm here for my interview. So I interviewed with probably a few of the most legendary people at Stryker back in the day, because that was when we had just rolled $1 billion, so quite small. And I got an interview with 5 people that day, no power, and ended up negotiating with them over my salary. I got offered $28,000, and I said I'm worth more than that. And they're like, but you're not. That's the going market. That's what a buyer makes straight out of college. All this. And so after an hour of negotiating with my prior boss, Lonnie Carpenter, at that time he was actually the director, VP of operations, and he said, all right, I'll give you $1,000 more, and we're taking $1,000 out of your signing bonus. So all in, after an hour and all that interviewing and heckling, I got $1,000 and got $29,000 to start my career and a $1,000 signing bonus. So that's me in a nutshell of how I was raised. Really hard work ethic, just kind of find a way to win. It was grit, and that is what has carried me through my trajectory. So I get my job at Stryker. Two other stories that really defined who I was at Stryker early on. If there's a will, there's a way. I think that's my Peloton name still today. Find a way to win. And as a buyer, supply chain, one example was we couldn't get batteries for one of our major components products. I was the buyer for the production line in the sterile clean room. And they were on strike. So the batteries, the AAA batteries, were on a barge and we couldn't get them. Anyway, bought them on a credit card from like a different supplier, got a QC to update the print and got them in, and we produced. So it's that kind of persistence and grit. It's not necessarily all academic. I love to strategize and I love the business planning, but you're not going to win against me out of grit just because I'm just going to dig in and find a way to win.
I love that. This is going to be we're going to have a lot of fun here. No, I love that. And I think there's something to be said about that, because I think, I personally, I always look at sales as kind of like, very much like being an athlete or a martial artist, in the sense that sometimes a lot of salespeople, if not looking for a shortcut, they're looking for some magical, complicated thing. And a lot of times it's just very simple foundational things. Just like if you look at, I'm in martial arts, so I do jujitsu and I fight. And you can learn all these fancy tricks and everything, but when you look at the competitions where the best in the world fight, everybody wins using like just very foundational techniques.
Yep.
And sometimes it's just like that simple, which is like just grit and persistence. You strike me as somebody who also sort of embraces the term, ask for forgiveness and never permission.
To a fault. I think going back to 4th grade, I was kind of told around this tune, think before you speak, or turn the keys before you start the ignition. And that goes to my personality, as I'm going to fire and I'm going to go. And then if I screw up and I offend you or I hurt your feelings, because it's never my intent, my heart is always of gold and I want to take care of everyone. I'm a big nurturer. I'm going to come back and apologize. So at Stryker, very early on, my boss used to say, she is a bull in a china shop, but she will come back and help you put the entire thing back together. I promise. So just hang with her for a couple more weeks and you're going to love her. So.
Let me ask you this. I wasn't expecting to ask a question like this, but let me get a little like psychological on you for a second. Do you remember the last time that you like really felt embarrassment or shame? Like how long ago was it?
No, I don't.
So I asked that, and I'm saying this because there's a lot of young reps who listen to this, and there's certain skill sets that I think are really important. And one of those things, which is shocking, and I think it's also very important for entrepreneurship, is that learning how to embrace and almost not care about public humiliation and embarrassment is a superpower, because you're willing to fail more, you're willing to try new things. And at the end of the day, especially in today's market, that's kind of the thing that wins, is like this combination of like grit and high pain threshold for like public humiliation. And, that seems to work, right?
Yeah, I mean, you question my integrity, those kind of things, but that's not what you're talking about. Like that
Yeah.
kills me. But like, if fear of failure, no. I mean, I no. In fact, I thrive on it. Like, I tell me I can't do it, and that's. I mean, there's so many running jokes with people that have known me is, tell me I can't do it, and now you've just told me I'm going to do it, and you better be ready. So no, I don't feel uncomfortable at all.
Well, and by the way, Aaron Chester just shot me a text. He says hello. So when I look at your background, you have a fascinating background. So you started out as a buyer in at supply chain in Stryker. So at what point did you realize you should have been on the sales side? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, again, because I didn't grow up in an academic rich family, right? And I had tutors just to perform at the scholastic level I did. And it was really through work ethic and building relationships with my teachers to excel. And I would get extra help and all of that. So really that is who I was through and through. I mean, I loved to sell Girl Scout cookies, and I would go door to door and I would win, right? I wanted to sell everything there was to sell. So I always did that. But I didn't understand all the different curriculums you could take in college. I went to college because my friends were going to college. I went to college because that's what people that were in my social group did, not because my family prepped me for that. So that alone right there, but my personality and who I was always born to be in a position where I could influence, have fun, build a relationship, and close something that I was going to close you on something you didn't think you wanted to say yes to before we interacted on it. So that was really natural. And I did it as a buyer, and all that I did it with quality, my product. There were 10 buyers at Stryker. My product was going to get QC'd, checked in before everybody else's, always. And why? Because the guys loved me in there, because I learned how to use all their equipment, not because of, I was a female or this or that or what I wore, because I learned their equipment. I took, passion and understanding how to check in their stuff. And they got cookies whenever I could go and get them and drop them off, or I'd go in to see how they were doing, or I'd go up and go sand dune buggying with someone, the head of QC, just all those things. And those are relationships. And so I was doing all of that naturally. I took the profile at Stryker in 1998, so a year after I was there, because again, it was just natural for me to do that. I will tell you, very early on, I got an opportunity to lead. And at that time, they were like, why don't you do this? And then I went over and joined Stryker Leibinger, which was a brand new acquisition that came with a massive acquisition we did at the time, Helmetica Osteonics. So long story short, I always wanted to, I did a profile and will she be successful compared to other great reps and all this. And it was, but I just kept getting more and more internal opportunities as well. And people took care of me. I had the best leaders and mentors in the industry teaching me, everything I could. So I think I used those sales skills my entire life of how I do today, outside and inside of work.
Well, and I think it shows also from your interview process, which again, like, I don't know about you, I'm positive at this point in your career, you probably get every other week, if not every week, a message from somebody, hey, I'm trying to break into medical devices. What advice do you have? And so on and so forth. And a lot of it just goes back to, it's very simple, just grit. Because if you can't find a way creatively to get in front of a hiring manager and then interview for a job that you may not be qualified for, like, what makes you think you're going to be able to do the same thing with a surgeon with multi-million-dollar equipment, right?
Yep. When I return, and I don't mean it as a token in my cap or whatever, but I return every one of those calls, because I came from, I'll spend 2 and 3 hours mentoring 2 different people from 2 different colleges. They're never going to work for CONMED. People did it for me. People took me on their back. People taught me. I had no reason to be where I am today based on what the world would say looks successful. It was because people picked me up and helped me and coached me, and they believed in me. So,
that's great. And so I love hearing that, because you essentially paid for it. And I would say, like, that's the one thing that I love about this industry. I think more people need to hear that as well, which is part of this culture, which is we do have a way of kind of paying it forward and, at least trying to help people. And there's a saying in Silicon Valley when I was working out of there, it was, I'll translate it to MedTech, which is, the saying is, when you want money, this is like when you're raising money. When you want money, ask for advice. But then when you want advice, ask for money. And so kind of like on the same token here, for a lot of people who are trying to get into the industry, shouldn't be asking for a job. You should be asking for 5 minutes of somebody's time to get advice, you know?
Yep.
And
Right.
yeah.
Yep. Spot on.
So let me ask you this. So when you were transitioning, when you first started off in your sales role, part of sales in medtech, in my opinion, and this is like because I know that for Stryker that I don't know if CONMED does, Stryker does, where if you're in marketing, you actually have to spend some time out in the field in sales. I have this rule where it's like you weren't really a sales rep unless you were either yelled at by a surgeon or kicked out of an OR. Like you hadn't been, because even you could do everything perfect. You're going to be in that one situation where you get in trouble. But when you're a young sales rep, your first year or two, yeah, what were some dumb things that you did? What were some mistakes you made that made you?
Great question. Mistakes that I made that made me. I was so naive to know. I wasn't scared because I was going up against Stryker Technology when I came to CONMED, and people were like, do you understand you're at one of the top largest Stryker institutions it's a whole house, and you're trying to win that against one of the top reps? What are you thinking? And I think I was just too naive to even believe that I could lose. And I think that is what probably defined me as, incredible technology, having responsibility, being respectful, understanding your customers' needs, and helping them understand how this will change what they do for patients. So I think that was kind of the opener for me. I was too naive to even know that I shouldn't be able to be that successful.
Do you feel like most sales reps are like that though these days? Because there has to be like a generate, like even me. I mean, I've been in the industry for like a little over 10 years. So, but even me, like in the short time that I've been in this industry, I've noticed some like generational differences between when I was a rep 10 years ago and like reps now. Like, what are some things that you see with today's reps that you're like, it shouldn't be that way?
Again,
don't hold back on this either, please.
I'm glad you took off the gloves. I believe, I don't believe in work-life balance because I think that word is silly to me. I think you can be an incredible mother. I hope I am. I have 2 teenage girls. They're incredible. They play travel sports. My husband is amazing. He works at a company that's very well known as well in medical device. And so we are very busy, and I don't come home and shut it off at 5. I also don't feel I have to be on at a certain time. I run my business to achieve or overachieve the goals that I have. And I know internally what I need to do. So and you have people around you, my husband, my girls, they're my balances of check, right? But you know what, if I got to be on a call on I'm at a soccer game, I'm going to go take it in the car. Great. No big deal. But I'm also going to go get my hair done or my nails done at some time during the day if I don't have meetings. And that you could call work-life balance, but I don't do it within a prescriptive way. I make sure I stay healthy mentally and physically. I'll go jump on the Peloton during the day and someone will call me from the team or from work, or what if it's a customer, I'll try to fake it and pretend I'm getting off as best I can without falling over while I'm breathing. But, I'll go get a 20-minute ride in because I need to reset mentally, and I know that, and I'm not being as efficient as I could. So that's probably one thing that drives me crazy is when people, when I get coached, even, Sarah, you got to have that work-life balance. You got to respect people after 5 o'clock. No, I don't. Yes, I do, but I wish. It's hard for me because.
No, I'm with you on that. I mean, sorry, finish your thought.
I feel like I should be able to send an email or.
No, yeah. I think
if you want to look at it, don't look at it.
Yeah, like here's what I would say, and this is where it's funny because like on one side, I think the tech industry overall has made things better and more competitive, but sometimes they've made things softer. So like on one side, there's this thing called work-life balance and after 5 o'clock. But if you're trying to build something, if you talk to people who worked, I don't know, like who worked in the first 10 years at Amazon still today, or Tesla, like you're trying to accomplish something really big. And 9 to 5 just is not going to cut it. I'm a big fan of I respect people and I want people to respect me, not bother me after 5. However, sometimes there's stuff that's going on. Like there's something serious and it's like, we need to fix this now, And so,
exactly.
And I think great leaders know that and realize that, and I think like just advice for like younger reps, just actually all younger professionals is that if you get in a habit, like you start a new job and you get in a habit of answering emails right away after 5 o'clock, you're indirectly conditioning people to expect that you'll be available to do stuff after 5 o'clock. So like you have to take, do it yourself and set those boundaries. But like, hey, when stuff happens, like sometimes, and the
Get it
other way
done.
too, right? The other
Yeah,
way too, I would say like sometimes family stuff comes up. It's like, hey, I know it's a work day. I gotta go take care of this, right?
yeah, and I think that's the mindset I was. Thank you for articulating that. Yeah, it's I just get the job done with enthusiasm and intensity, regardless. And then when you need to check out, check out. So
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think there's, for me, I started my own company and I'm doing everything mainly because I want to build a family on my terms and I want to be present and everything. That being said, in some ways, I believe in work-life imbalance. There's sometimes some either weeks or certain times
yeah,
where I have big imbalance in my life, but that way I have imbalances in the other parts of my life. So like I work every single day. I work holidays. I work every single day. But as a result of that, I also have imbalance. Like today, my father stopped by and I wanted to go for a walk. I spent like an hour and a half walking around the lake with him right now, in the middle of the day,
yep,
right?
yep.
So sometimes you have to think of it like that. And I think like trying to control things as much as possible, right?
Spot
I
on.
think that's where people, what I don't like is when you try and control things yourself and you realize, oh, I can't control it, but I'm going to try and impose it on other people in my environment to try and accommodate myself.
Yeah.
And it's just
And
not how it goes.
I think our technology these days has allowed us to be so flexible that I don't need to be in an office responding to an email in order to get my job done, right? I
Yeah.
could be in the car using voice texting, responding and getting things done, and I might be driving on a personal trip. So I think you gotta also look at it like that. So that's where I was going from the 8 to 5. Just find a way to win. If you're in a job where there's expectations that are XYZ, you got to hit them, and you got to hit them with excellence and excitement. And so that's my message. I do tell young folks getting out of college, those first 2 years, you're making a name for yourself. You're going to work harder. You're going to work with more discipline. You're going to have more of an energy, more focus, more smile. And if you don't have in those first 2 years, you're dating your company. That is where you're not married, and you want to be the best of the best because you're defining your personality and who you are, and really the next probably 5 years of your trajectory in what you're being asked to take on next. So I think you're highly, it is so critical for your first couple of years to be all in on your job. And if you're not ready to do that, just know that what job you're taking doesn't require that, or those aren't the expectations. In sales, 100% commission, it is. You need to be ready to go all in. And I have people that are straight out of college that work for me, and they're fantastic. And they coach girls basketball teams. She does, and that doesn't mean she's all in, and she's defining herself, and she's making a name.
Yeah. And I think again, like I like that term, and you're absolutely correct, which is like going like sort of all in, right? And I think it's very important. Well, as young as I am, I mean, I'm not that young. I'm 37 years old. But like, I'm a big Zig Ziglar fan, and Zig Ziglar, said that, it's not just, what you do for your job, but like how you do the job, right?
Yeah.
And I think like the level of energy, like there's this term that he would say is like a company man or company woman, which is like regardless of what's going on, they bring the absolute best version of themselves every single day to work. And I respect people like that. And granted, I think like today it's good that we're a little bit more open-minded where mental health, I think, is an important thing.
Yes,
family, so I think it's good. At the same time though, company, you have work to get done, you have business to get done, and nobody has time to be dealing with your problems, right? Sometimes there's like big dramatic things that's different, but it's like, hey, you're dealing with XYZ, leave that at home.
Well, and I think maybe just to put a bow on it, you earn that right because of what you are every day, right? You earn that. You need to check out. I'm not asking why. In fact, I'm pushing you out. Go do what you need to do because I know who you really are at the core and what you're going to come back to and what you're going to get done. And if I don't care why you got to check out, I care, and I'll probably be walking along that journey with you personally. But I want you to go do what you got to do because far more important than the job. Now, if you're going to join medical device, you're asking for one of the most challenging, most intense, career opportunities you can get. So don't fizzle it out by trying to just be average. So
No, I'm totally with you. And again, like I think it's kind of like being like uh again, like we're talking a lot about like being a young professional. Like when you're in a meeting, for example, every meeting you say something, the things you say start to have less and less meaning. But if you have something to say and every now, that's when everybody says, oh, I've never heard this person speak up and let me listen to them. Same thing with, I think, problems, which is like, if you come to work with the best version of yourself every single day, and there's that one day where maybe you're not, not at 100%, you're like 80, people pick up and somebody will be like, hey, like, you should probably take the day off and everything. And it's sort of like you've earned it. And again, I only say this because I'm very sensitive about it, because when I was living in Silicon Valley, I felt like not at the companies I was at, but other companies I would hear about it or encounter. It's like every week there's something. Every week there's something. And I'm like, again, this goes back to grit, which is just like, I feel like people have become more and more soft. And actually, I have to bring it up and read it, because it was Joseph Otherman, who's a legend in the capital sales world. He's just on my show, and we were talking yesterday, and he brought up this quote, which is from Michael Hoff. I've heard this quote so many times, I just know who said it, which is, hard times create strong men and women create good times create weak men and women create hard times. And so the cycle repeats,
Yep.
And right
That's
now,
great.
I feel like we're in those weak times, and that pendulum is swinging, where there are certain people who are kind of rising to occasion, where they're like, can't allow this to kind of go on. I'm getting a little bit too political, but I think you follow me. You follow.
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do.
Yeah.
I will tell you really quick before you move on. Did Aaron Chester tell you to say that about speaking too much in a meeting? So one of my gifts.
No, he did not tell me that.
One of my things that I'm always working on is listening with my 2 ears and zipping.
Well, I think that's most salespeople, right? I think that's most salespeople. And no, one of my mentors, Ken Hughes, said, which is like, God gave you 2 ears and one mouth for a reason.
Yeah. So I'm working on it all the time.
Yeah, but again, like that, sometimes like if you swing the pendulum too far on the other side, then sometimes you're not willing to say the things that need to be said, right?
Yep.
So it kind of cuts both ways.
Yep.
So, but no, I'll honestly, he did not. When somebody makes a recommendation of me to interview, I usually just take the recommendation. I do not call them, because I don't want my interviews to be biased in any way. But I'm glad that I'm getting good enough that I can pick up on these things. So you've won multiple President's Clubs. One of the things that a lot of these reps is like, what does it take to win President's Club? Because it's more than just achieving quota. There's a lot of things that go into it. What was the first President's Club you won, and what changed that made you that person?
Yeah, it was my first year I was in sales. And to get President's Club, there were different parameters, not only hitting quota, but you had XYZ and other variables, because there was more than one person that achieves that. And when I say President's Club at CONMED, at least, that's when you go on a trip with the president, and you're going on a vacation and enjoying that with the other top performers in that group, and you take your significant other. And mine was, you had to sell in every product category and have the most sales in every single product category. And so that is what I did to achieve that. I didn't have the highest sales in the entire company. That's
still really hard to have the high sales in like every product category. That's really difficult.
That was pretty cool to do that. And that's how I was able to achieve it. I think that actually defines me, like how I sell today, I am naturally in my being. I am always paying attention to every little detail that's going on. And same with winning that opportunity, was because I constantly was trying to figure out what product categories I could tap into. And
can you unpack that a little? Because like, how do you get to a point where you're able to sell so much in every product category? That's like really difficult. And just for like rough estimate, how many product categories did you have back then?
Well, probably.
Was it more than 3? That's a lot. Yes. If it's more than 3, that's a lot. That's really difficult. Yeah. That's really difficult. Yeah. So how do you do that?
Different specialties, relationships. I would pull one thread, and I take that, and then I get input from that person, and hey, Doctor.
Give us an example. Like if you can set up sort of a case study and role play it real quick, that would be helpful.
We had a 3 millimeter instrument, and so it was a medical device, right? 3 millimeter laparoscopic instrument. And there's those out there, but they're hard to use in general. And I had already done very well in the other 4 product categories. And we weren't doing great selling those, but they were really great instruments. But it was just not a market that has taken off and done very well in medical device. So I had relationships with people, and I went and talked to them about how they could do their procedures for more minimally invasive and how that would impact the woman. Maybe if she was getting a GYN procedure, a total hysterectomy, and less scarring and better healing and just more, lower impact surgery in general. So unpacking that, and being able to commit to myself, I am going on that trip. So what do I need to do it? And no one else was really being able to knock that pin over in our sales team to that level. And I went out and started 3 trials immediately. From there, cultivated those relationships. The product performed great and was able to get the POs. So yeah, I mean, that's as simple as it is. That's it.
And I guess, it sounds like you mentioned like paying attention to the details. So it just sounds like bringing a high level of energy and awareness to kind of really pay attention to small, subtle cues that sort of allow you those little windows of opportunities where you can sneak in, not sneak in. These windows of opportunities are very, very quick. Like, this is kind of like a stereotypical example. The window of opportunity where a surgeon, let's say, has a case where it's not that things went bad, but they didn't go normal. And now that bad taste is in their mouth, and there's that tiny window of opportunity, which it might be even a couple hours, maybe an evening, that you can have that touch point and then convert them the next day or that next week. And then now, like, your product line is it's land and expand, right? Would you agree? Is that the right way?
Yeah. 100%. I think one of the things that I didn't realize that I did differently, and I think as a sales leader, you kind of now start reflecting back, like, what did I do that maybe is different? Because we all just think we work really hard and we find a way to win, right? But there are different, unique things that I think maybe I do differently that I assumed my team would naturally do as well, because I did it naturally. And I'm just starting to coach my team, certain people on my team with it. It specifically is qualifying and getting them to say no, so that you understand where the hang up is, so that you really can define your next step.
Can you give me an example of that? Like, if we use, like, give me a clinical example of, like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I totally agree, but I'll role play here. What kind of physician is it?
Say it again.
What kind of physician?
We'll do a robotic surgeon that does hysterectomies.
Okay, so robotic surgeon who does hysterectomies. Okay, and so you asked me some questions, and you're waiting for me to say no. What are you waiting for? Like
my patient's fine. They don't have post-operative pain. They don't. They recover just fine. I don't have any trouble losing pneumoperitoneum, so I can see fine, and the smoke's not that bad. I'm good.
So everything's good.
Making them tell me why they don't want it. And I'll push on them, and they'll be like, it's expensive. I guess, I'm sorry, I'm not doing a great job role playing it with
No, you're doing great. So in that case, surgeon, which this is a typical example, like, everything's fine. And they rattle all things like, patient's good. I don't have this problem. I don't have that problem. All that's fine. At that point, a lot of reps are like, okay, cool. I'll check back in or something. What do you suggest they do? You're suggesting they dig deeper. How?
Yeah. If your mom, I'll take it real personally often.
Yeah.
If your aunt, your mom, your sister was on that table and you truly had something to give them the best experience, why wouldn't you try that? If it was absolutely no different to you, why wouldn't you give them that opportunity? Well, how is it that different? And so there we go. That's what they'll do. Go, how is it that different? Because I just internalized it to make it very personal for them.
Interesting. And so your thing is positioning it where, like, even if they don't have any of these problems, it's like, okay, you have no problem. Everything works fine, but why not give them the very best? And the fact is, it's almost like you're opening a window for them to say, well, how is it better?
Yeah, because they just told me it's not, when I just spewed all the reasons it was. So I got to start over, because I'm not going to fight them on it and win. In that short window, I've got to step back and go, why wouldn't you want to expose? You are a doctor because you want the best for your patients. Why won't you at least give them the opportunity to have the best care and understand what this is?
So how is it, if they push back and like, well, how is it best? What do you do at that point? Where in this sales algorithm, where do you go next?
Yeah. Again, I probably am asking them about, you share with me that most of your patients do great. do you ever have really heavy patient, because these are our clinical emotional drivers. So I talk to those things, but do you have XYZ patient ever? Yeah, I do, but it's really abnormal. But do you know how hard anesthesia is working to really make that possible? And so I'll take a different angle and take the heat off of them for a minute. And I'll just say, so others in the room, if this actually helped them be able to take care of the patient better, would that be of value?
That's interesting, which is anti-challenger sale, which I like. And even, I mean, I don't know him personally. I should have him on the show. So, but even Matt Dixon kind of admitted that like the challenger sale, it's not that it's outdated, it's just like it's evolved. And so your thing is like not to continue challenging, putting heat on the surgeon, because now at that point, it's like two forces pushing against each other. You bring in a third force and dislodge by redirecting to somebody else in the room and the team and making it a bigger picture.
They've either got an ego, they don't have the time. There's a reason, right? And so if I can get them off the hook, off the hot seat from standing this far from me, and get somebody else engaged in the conversation that says, yeah, I do struggle with that. They're like, oh, okay. And then okay, tell me more. Tell me the clinical science behind it. And then I'll bring in the clinical evidence and then, depending what happens, and then you start peeling it from there.
So usually, time is pretty limited in these sort of scenarios. If they get to a point where they're like, send me, like, bring me the clinical science, at that point, like, it's always better to do it in person, right? But if you can't, when you have to do it digitally, remotely, like, do you have a preference? Do you prefer, like, let's say using email, or do you prefer to get them on a Zoom? Like, how do you prefer to like sell and persuade?
Yeah. Because our tech, we are taking a mindset from don't need it, never thought about it, to, it's a building process, because you're trying to get proprietary technology bought off capital, off budget. So you're helping them understand a problem they've never had. So it's got to be that interactive conversation to begin with. You send them an email 99% of the time, they're not going to open the clinical evidence that you're sending them, or the clinical studies, which for our product, there is more than ever has been studied. And, it's you can send it to them. That's almost proof, but it's more, why wouldn't you want to try that? It's getting them to try it. And after they try it, and so today I was speaking with one of the gentlemen on my team, a rep, and he said, I said, is he a champion? 1, 2, or 3? Is he a champion? How we define it? And he said, he's like a 2. And I said, what's the next step? And he said, it's this exact situation, right? And I said, what's the next step? And he said, he told me he would tell the OR director that he wants it for his next large patient that's having a colonectomy. And I said, okay, so he's going to tell her that. When's that going to happen? He's like, well, he doesn't have one on a schedule. I said, you missed it. I said, let's replay that. And I said, well, because by telling him, he said to you, he'll send that email and he'll tell her she wants it. How about, I want Kyle to have this technology here by next week, because it has to get checked in. We'll let it sit in the closet until that date is on the calendar, because otherwise it's just going to get forgotten about. And you're going to constantly be following up with him saying, hey, you got that patient? Hey, you got that patient? Your goal right now is to get the technology in the door, so it's checked in and approved, because you got to back up 3 steps. She still needs to bring it, the OR director still needs to bring it to the committee to even get approval. So you're going to wait until it's scheduled to even get approval by the route he was taking, versus I want the technology approved this week so it can get checked in by clinical engineering and be ready to go when I get it on my schedule. Very different, because they're quantifiable times with commitments of what I'm going to do. So when he left today, and he's been working on this the surgeon for a long time, he left feeling pretty happy that the doctor said, okay, I will support / champion the product. But I think the what we talked about, how he could capitalize on that conversation, is truly getting her to say, I need it checked, I need it approved now, so that we're ready to go when it comes in. So a little different, but very different sound, similar, but very different.
I think, and again, to be fair, I never worked at a company that was large enough that had presence clubs. I was always at startups, so we never really had presence clubs. It was just like, we got to sell and drive adoption, otherwise we're not raising money. But I feel that top performers in terms of salespeople manage and own the process, and don't just kind of leave it up to chance because the customer says, oh yeah, I'm interested, or I'll do it. Do you feel like that's an important thing, which is they're driving it and like kind of like managing the process and pushing?
own every aspect. I clarify one point, and then I'm going to give you a real story.
Yeah, please.
One President's Club for me, one trip as we qualify. Yes, I have quota 5 years in a row, top quota achiever, all that good stuff, but only have one President's Club. So I with anybody watching this, I want to make sure that's on the record. Thank you. And then as we define it, as it relates to even going back to objections, right? And that's what I think the biggest miss is today. People hear an objection and they think it's honest. They think it's real. So with our technology, the whole room was like, we're an outdated OR. We don't have house gas. We hate changing bottle tanks, all these things. And I said, go solve that for them. Go down to the dock, find out where they get their tanks. They say they only can stop. The silliest rabbit hole they told the rep. And I said, that's not the issue. But that's what they had that rep convinced that was a problem. And as soon as they got the new OR, which was going to be in 8 months, they then are going to want to buy his technology. I said, that's absolutely crazy. Go solve that issue. Go find when those trucks come in. Can they bring 2 more tanks? I don't care if they can bring 2 more tanks. You're eliminating that objection because they're not being honest. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. And something you pointed out, again, for the reps who are listening, a lot of times, whether it's medical device sales or selling software, like in my case, I have digital products and software. A lot of objections aren't objections; they're just complaints. That's not the real objection, right? And the only way you get to the real objection is that you have to ask questions and press. Like not just questions for the sake of asking questions, but questions that are uncomfortable for you to ask, but you have to push, and somebody has to ask them. Otherwise, you're not going to get to the real objection.
Yeah, and and so again, your job at the end of the day is to bring that technology to them. That's great, but is it important in that person's job to go go find where the CO2 tanks come from and how they make it to the second floor to the OR storage closet? No, but if you don't do that and own that aspect of it, you can't find out how to get your deal done because that's your objection. So I know that's not really what you care about, but you got to go do it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think this is where I think like the great reps shine. And again, I tell people all the time, and I can say this because I've been in software, I've been in internet, so a lot of different. This is, in my opinion, based on what I've seen, the hardest sales job on planet Earth. Right? It is the hardest sales job because I think the best people, they're like, okay, I'm in this world, which is the hospital, and I'm dealing with this surgeon, right? And this is what they're saying. But again, going, it's down to the doctor or going to supply chain or going to, procurement, whatever it is, and figuring out, it's like, oh, you know what? I'm putting these pieces. It's almost like you're a detective in some kind of Showtime series. Yeah, that's the part. I miss the grind. I don't want to go back and be a rep again because I can't. It doesn't support the lifestyle I have at this point. But I miss the grind of that. Okay, they're saying this thing. I need to go and as I'm leaving the hospital, I'm going to take a left turn and look, I'm down here in the basement or I'm here in the docks. And I'm going to ask people questions. I'm going to get some information. It's that's the person who's really pulling the strings on this. This is the person who's holding it up.
You got it. And and again, people get one tracked. Oh, it's just the surgeon. Actually, it's not. It's not at all.
Behind the surgeon, there's a variety of different things. It could be this one scrub tech who, I don't know. This is like a great example, but there was a hospital I was at where this one scrub tech, I haven't talked about this in a long time. There's a scrub tech who was, I don't think the guy was a gang member, but I'm pretty sure if he wanted to be, he could be. But the dude was pretty tough guy and everything. But the guy had a mouth. He was hilarious, but he would just talk smack in surgery. And I knew for a fact, the surgeon, there was a part of the reason why he didn't want to do certain things because this scrub tech was just going to be running his mouth and everything. So I had to go, and by the time I figured this out, I want to talk to scrub tech. I'm like, hey man, here's the situation. Here's the scenario. What do I got to get to do to get you sort of on my side and support? And the guy was cool. He's like, oh yeah, homie. He's like, I'll back you up on that. I'm like, okay, cool. I was like, so when I talk to Dr. So-and-so tomorrow and you're by the scrub thing, I need you to just kind of back me up on this, man, please. And I had to, and he's like, totally. And I remember I was at the scrub thing with the doctor. I was talking about this. This is a robotic case a long time ago. And I was like, blah, blah, blah. And this scrub tech was it's yeah, like, doc, I totally agree with Omar. Like, why don't we just do it that way? Like, it'll be cool. And the doctor, knowing that this guy wasn't going to be like being a pain in the surgery, because this guy was like his main guy was like, okay, well, let's do it.
I believe that surgeons in general, what are they? And I explain this all the time. And actually, when I went, I did a project back when I was at my prior life. I got an opportunity to go to the Harvard Business School, and one of our projects that we did was how an OR works together, but doesn't. If they don't know what each other are doing. Truthfully, the circulator, the surgeon, the first assist, anesthesia, they come in extremely laser focused on their job. And it's really fascinating because a surgeon will come in, he'll call it valve seal, he'll call it, let me have the seal, he'll call it the wrong technology, the wrong company. Yeah, that one. They have one thing on, they don't really know. They'll say, I want that foam stuff. They don't really know. And when you talked about the first assist or the PA or the person bedside assisting them, they trust that person so much in making sure that things are set up the way that they want to be successful at operating. They're not thinking about all the other things, but they believe that that room has identified what makes the room successful. So that PA, to your point, is really the glue, or the first assist, scrub tech as well. Those go hand in hand. Those two people need to know who you are. They need to like you. They need to believe in the product, and they need to feel like it's easy to use. So, people come in and sell to the surgeon. Yes, your surgeon has got to be a champion to get it through administration. The others have to totally have your back and your product's back in order to get it used in the room and opened every single case.
100%. I think the supporting cast around the product, like nurse, tech, whoever it is, they are not enough to get your product in, but they are damn well enough to keep it out. And it's funny, like for me, my part of the reasons why I love doing these podcasts and episodes is kind of like I go back and relive like certain memories of this. But like, I remember when I transitioned from sales in the field into like a marketing role, and then I was going to like, oh my God, it was not. Thank God I was single back then. I couldn't do this now with a kid in there, but I went to like 16, 17 conferences a year, and I remember being at the booth, and I would see our sales team, but then also like other people, like other companies where surgeons would come up, everybody's trying to talk to a surgeon, and they would have like one or two PAs with them. And I'm like, why isn't anybody talking to these people? And then the more I started educating myself, talking, I'm like, that surgeon's not adopting anything until, because usually, and I don't know, I think you embody this because you I could tell just by the way you're answering that there's this aggressive curiosity and you have a will of finding out. And it's not like, nothing that we've said here is new information, because I guarantee most reps who are listening to this, they have a surgeon where they're like, they propose something and the surgeon's response is, well, let me talk to my PA about it, or let me advise my PA. I think a top rep is the one who thinks, bingo, I need to go and schedule time separately with that person. That's who I need to focus on. Because at the end of the day, that person is a vehicle of persuasion, and them pitching your product on their worst day is better than you pitching your product on your best day.
You got it, hands down. So
big,
perfect.
$1 million advice. You guys can send Sarah and I just like a fruit basket, or maybe percent of that commission check you're about to get for that advice. Yeah, I'll set up a GoFundMe. Actually, better. We have a crypto wallet. We can get it. We can do it to
crypto. I didn't get into any of that.
Well, in some ways, it's probably good because there's some people made some pretty bad errors on that. So, but
I work too hard. I don't even gamble. If I go like somebody says we gotta go if on a trip or something, right? I don't gamble. I'll take $20, and $20 comes out of one pocket as I spend it, and anything I make goes in the other pocket, and I won't touch it.
I love that. See, I have that same. You know what? That's like old. That's a Midwest thing. I get it's an old school thing, but I do. It's like what goes in this wallet, you take some out of this and put it in this pocket.
Not touching it. I work way too hard for it. So yeah.
What and again, I want to be mindful of your time because it's late over this, so we'll wrap up a little bit. But a few more. You can do a few more questions, right?
Absolutely.
I'll try my best not to ask a question that's going to have have you talk as long, but I can't make any promises. What was the most painful thing that somebody ever told you that made you change?
I haven't changed, but I work on it every day.
Okay.
Because I'm so passionate, my passion can flip to emotion pretty quick.
Hmm.
Good, bad, or indifferent, most females have more emotion. We do. And we can, you'll see women crying in sports.
My show's getting canceled now because of that. I'm done. Thanks, Sarah.
It's just true. And because I'm so passionate, and if I believe in something, Jim Heath used to tell me when I would go into his office and I'd shut that door, he would like brace himself because my chin, he said, would get square. And he just knew I was going to go off, and I was just going to let him have it because I was pissed about something else. And it was priceless. And he would remember saying that. And I it's that emotion, that passion. I believe so strongly. One time I was running our quick thing. I believe so strongly when I was reporting to Jim Heath about the sales feedback that we got. So we were doing a different type of Gallup where we were getting sales feedback. It was a different way to do it. And it actually was a reflection of our general manager at the time. One of the questions, that general manager came, and it was confidential. I was orchestrating it, and I gave my word. And no one was going to see that, and it was going to go to Gallup, but I was collecting everything the way it was being done. And I had the forms, and our general manager at the time wanted them. And I said, no. And he came and took them. And I went into Jim's office. I said, I'm going to get them back. He's like, Sarah, you can't do that. And I said, well, I'm going to. He's like, you are going to get yourself fired and me fired right here. And it's that being able to check it, because I was so wrapped up passionately that it turned to emotion. Like I was going to let my general manager have it and say some things I shouldn't that aren't professional and aren't appropriate. But when I believe in something, that emotion that passion turns very quick to emotion. So I have to work on it. If I don't keep it in check, you'll see a tear start to form. Yeah, and
I can appreciate that, and because I'm not a woman and I don't identify as one either. Man, I'm getting this show's getting canceled. But whatever. You know what? You know what I've learned? If there's one thing I've learned, I study the internet a lot. Like not like peruse it. Like I actually study it. Getting canceled these days is sometimes like the best thing, because you kind of like everybody that I know is canceled. Like they've like made more money now, and I'm like maybe there's something to be said about it. But all joking aside, we talked about this before we started the show, which is like, again, I'm very public about this. I don't subscribe to like this wokeness or woke, but I do recognize that there are differences, and one of those differences is that medical device sales is definitely like heavily male dominated, right? And so I think a lot of female reps, it's just different for them. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. What's some good advice you can give to some of the female reps who are listening to this?
Yeah, and I'm gonna backdrop that with I worked at Chrysler World headquarters as an intern when I was in college.
Where?
Chrysler World headquarters.
Oh, Chrysler. Okay, got it.
Or it was the Mecca, right? Back then, that was in 93, 94.
Detroit was booming back then. Like
it was 94. Yeah. In the Chrysler World headquarters, it had the Pentagon up top. It was incredible, right? And so I worked there. The women pulled me aside as an intern. I was an intern, and the women in my core group pulled me aside, and they're like, you have to sit on the left-hand side, you have to sit on the right-hand side of a man in every meeting. Kid you not. Whenever the right-hand side. Why? Because men, whatever hand they write with, and most men are in the room, and most men write with the right hand, or by chance, right? By just the facts. And so they'll lean towards you and they'll talk to you. If you're sitting on the left, you're not going to get that as naturally. Number two, whenever you go to the restroom in this big, huge place, you have to take a file folder with you and carry it to the restroom with you. So it looks like you're going to a meeting or you're on your way to different business. And I was like, why? And they're like, because otherwise when you stop to talk, it'll look like you're talking socially and whatever. You'll have an image of just being gossipy versus, so that culture, it was real for women. And I share that because it sticks with me, but I don't subscribe to it at all. What I guess I believe as a woman or a man, we are different and it's wonderful. You got to know who you're around, right? And if you're this person, being a female and growing up with all males in a boardroom, when I would sit there as a leader at Stryker, I was the only female in all these new product meetings or whatever roles I had in marketing. I had to understand my group. And if I can't add jokes in the room, people are not going to be themselves. And so fortunately, I love the jokes and I'm very raw that way. So I'm okay with it. And I make it very clear I'm not offended by it. And I'm going to hold you accountable. So you're not going to, so if you say something, I'm going to be like, dude, clean it up or suck it up, buttercup, But in the same regard, you got to be able to play on your own terms and just work your heart out. I think so here it is, work ethic, male or female, same, right? Don't be so guarded. Just let it be. Someone's going to say something that's going to offend you, but that's not because you're a female. It's because you're different than them. Don't take yourself so seriously. Great. I mean, there's bounds, but I mean, just let it be. Don't be so prescriptive with what people can and can't say around you, because that makes you, no one wants to be around that, whether you're male, female, whatever ethnicity, whatever religion. I don't want to be around somebody that's so emphatic that I can't talk about it. I want to be around people where there's trust. So as a female, my perspective is just let your hair down, be who you are, and don't be so uptight about, they shouldn't act that way or.
I completely, I completely agree on that. And I think that like, there are some things like, I've had, female reps like send me messages where like they were like told something that it was like offensive. Like, it's just like, there's no other way around it. And like, you gotta like report that. Do not put up with that. That being said, there's certain things where you have to allow, especially these days, everybody's on edge. Everybody's afraid that they're going to get in trouble, reported, canceled, and everything. So you kind of got to give people a little bit of leeway. And I think like one of those things is just sort of like, I think this goes back to being really good at sales, which is sort of be curious and sort of don't look at situations as just black and white and kind of like try and understand it. Right.
Right.
Because for me, there's a good amount of my mentees, what's interesting. It hit me like a few weeks ago and I was talking to my wife about this. A lot of the people that I mentor, I think like 60% of them are young women that reach out to me. And I think part of it's because I think most guys in their 20s are pretty stubborn and they think they have everything figured out. I think women are like when they're younger, they're a lot more inquisitive. Anyways, again, my anecdotal experience, but with some of the younger female reps I've talked to, in some cases they dealt with a man who is an absolute jerk, and in a certain scenario, it's like, no, that's just like offensive, sexist remark, like that's BS. A lot of other times they'll describe, like this is a classic one a few years ago. She was telling me that she was in a meeting and like certain meetings, and she was like, I feel like he's doing this, and it's because I'm a woman and everything. And we kind of talked more about it, and she was telling me more about the situation. And I was like, hey, look, I was like, I don't work with you, so talk to other people. But this doesn't sound like this guy is, anti-woman or something. This guy just sounds like an asshole, and I think he's like this with everybody. And lo and behold, she came back and she's like, I talked to some of the guys, and she's like, yeah, he's like that with everybody. He's just hyper competitive jerk. He just wants to put his like foot on people. I'm like, there you go. And I think, I don't know, I feel like people are different, and there's ways to sort of embrace your differences and like leverage them as tools versus, I don't, like,
I agree.
Like I'm not gonna make any friends saying this, but like, there's certain, the world is changing, and I think it was a certain way for a long time. Not because people are bad, there are bad people, of course, but just like it is what it is. All right, like for example, I know that now, like we don't see a lot of women in like certain leadership roles, right, and that's changing a little. The other thing is, a lot of women didn't enter the workforce until 50 years ago. Like this, so that doesn't happen, so there's all these things that are very complex topics. And I think they're a lot more complicated than just simply as like, oh, it's like this because of this ethnic thing or this cultural thing and everything. I'm just like, sometimes I just feel like those become like obstacles and distractions for people versus just focusing on the work.
And the skill set and the results. Like I don't want to be a CEO, probably because wouldn't be great at. I know where I'm great. I don't play well past a director level. And I'm okay saying that because I know who I am.
I have a lot of respect for you for saying that. That's like, that is why do you, tell me, how did you come to that conclusion?
It's hard to share my age, but yeah, I because I'm going to look you, because I'm going to hold you accountable, and I'm not patient if there's I'm intense, right? And I am great managing down with my, like, people, influencing down and motivating and encouraging. At a higher level than that, how about this? I just say it. I don't play the political game you got to play.
I'm the same way. Why do you think I started my own company?
Yeah.
I think that's like kind of like what it takes in corporate America, especially is like it a lot of times, I'm just saying in general that like a lot of times it's not like how good you are. It's just like, are you good at politicking? You know?
And again, that's not a male female thing. So
No.
so it's just, can you hold your tongue, or are you savvy enough to be able to do that? Or do you want, hey, not even that. I can do it. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, again, this is my, so I'm going to reverse this on me for a second so that I don't get in too much trouble. But I'll give you a perspective on something of how I use my gender to my advantage. Right. So when was this? I don't want to get into these. A while back, I was selling certain products, and then a core group of the customers were women, and they were serviced by female vendors. So they're just dealing with women all day long.
Yep.
And so for me, I thought, I'm like, well, this female prospective customer I'm going to deal with is dealing with women all day long. And I would imagine it's going to be refreshing for her to be talking to a man because it's different. And
Yeah.
I'm going to take advantage of that in the sense that I'm going to present myself in a certain way. I'm going to speak in a certain way, right?
Yep.
And it's just a different experience. And because of the fact it's different, she will pay attention and I can persuade it. So equally so, yes, I think medical sales is a boys' game. And by the
Yep.
way, and by the way, I never have this issue with female audience members, but it's always that one guy. I call him the public service announcement guy. He's like, "Hey, Omar, blah blah," just PSA guy. I don't need to hear from you on this. But I think professionally and in the right way, if you're a female rep, right? Obviously, don't do, like, God, I'm really walking a fine line here.
You're on a line. You're like tipping over.
I'm on the line, but I think that there's ways to take advantage, right, of a sales process and just say, you know what, I'm dealing in, let's say it's like ortho, like super male dominated. It's like, okay, all these other male reps are all coming to the surgeon with the same approach, using the same analogies, bringing up the same stupid topics to get them interested. I'm going to come at a different angle because I have a different perspective and there's different things that I'm interested in. And that'll be enough to get that surgeon's attention, and it will be different enough where it's engaging. So I think something as simple as just like, instead of using a sports analogy for everything, come up with a different analogy, right?
It's
so like,
I'll flip it for you. Being a female walking into a OR, what are all the circulators? 90% women.
Oh yeah, right? Exactly.
So you walk in as a female. If you're attractive, you're bubbly, you're talkative. You know what you've just done to yourself? Put a target on your back.
Mm-hmm.
These other women are tired. They've worked really hard. They're in scrubs. Their hair isn't. You come in with perfume on, makeup on, looking
all. That's a great point.
Looking all done up because you think you're going to influence the surgeon. And that, by the way, is their room. And you come in all hot to trot and think you're just going to walk in the room, and you don't put your name on the board with humility. Ask them if it's okay that you're in your room, their room. That's their room. And I'll tell you what, you've put an absolute target on your back in that entire hospital, because it will spread like wildfire that here comes that, you know what.
Yeah.
I'm
so happy you said that.
Gotta know. And
it's situational awareness. Look, I'll trade you one back. I know you got to go soon as it's later, but let me trade you one back, like in a similar way. With a lot of the guys, especially when they start doing well, the first thing they do, and I'm one of those guys, like I like it now, which is buying, let's say, a Rolex, right? Yep. And for one side, it's like, oh, it's good, like it'll look good, they'll impress the surgeon and everything. At the same time, you got to keep on. There's a lot of people in that room don't make that much money, man, and they may not know you. And between men, that kind of jealousy breeds breeds life. If you're a hardworking average Joe, right, and you're working a hard job like a scrub tech or SPD
Yep.
or something, and some dude comes in, you know, as nice as you can be, you got that like a really nice watch on and everything. You don't want to make that person feel bad, and so that they're like, man, I don't have a watch like that. I don't know this.
You
And
can
so
get labeled. Don't
exactly.
get labeled. Yeah.
And even, you know, for me, like, I just feel like you have to have some situational awareness, and it's just not worth it. Now, can you, like, I don't really care much about a lot of people's feelings, but like in those situations, like, is it technically worth it? Like, do you have to wear that watch when you go in that day? No. Right. Or if you wear it, do you have to wear it to the OR? Probably not. And again, like, maybe I'm splitting hairs here, but I feel like these are the things.
What is your job? My job in the way I run it's not about them. I don't want to put barriers in the way that are going to get in the way of why I'm there. So why would I do that if I know some people you see signs in hospitals, perfume, please don't wear it. You're going to go wear perfume. Don't be stupid. Right.
Exactly.
Wear your stupid shoe covers so you don't be the one who gets in trouble. Like, wear a coat if you're supposed to wear a coat. Take away all the stupid things so that you can actually go in and not have those labels on you,
and focus on customer service. And I think, because I'm going to
screw up. I'm going to screw up. I'm going to say something I should, but I haven't already gotten in trouble for the stupid stuff that I could control.
No, 100% so. And I think, again, like, these are things like, they're not like it. They're not going to help you. If it's not going to help you, if it is a risk, I recommend just reconsider it. I mean, look, when I started as a rep, like, so actually, I've never mentioned this, but I'll mention it here. When I started as a rep, I was in my hometown where I was previously in medical school. I was on the paper because I was a hometown boy that went to medical school. So, and my father was a surgeon. So I had this image already of like, oh, this guy was handed stuff and blah, blah, blah. Definitely not the case. But, you know, and especially coming out of med school, right?
Yeah.
All right.
That's very cool. I did not know this.
Yeah. So when I started at the hospital that my father, right? So like, it was a hospital that got a robot, but it was a hospital my dad used to do a lot of surgeries out of. And he was like it was a physician's owned hospital, right? I had that, like, stigma. I already had that stigma. Yeah. Whether I liked it or not. So knowing this, the first day I did, and I did this for months, even when I was told, like, I don't have to do it. When the case was done, this is back when Missouri Box, and we got the dirty tray, I walked it back to SPD and I washed the instruments. It like, alongside with the guy who had to clean instruments, and he's and just not only for him, but for the scrub tech, for all these people to see it.
Yep.
And then over time, like, and it was pretty quick, they saw me like one of them. I was not I wasn't the doctor's son. I wasn't the ex-medical student. I was Omar Khateeb, the guy who represented Missouri Robotics. It's like, he's part of the team. This guy's a homie. And so when things go south, when I needed help with things and everything, they're willing to do it because I wasn't the guy who came in with an ego or anything. Like, at the end of the day, it was very much customer service. And I saw my job as not just the robotic part. It's like the whole experience of when I'm there, you know?
You summarized it perfect. That's it. That's 100% it. And if you told me to pick up a broom in the hospital, you didn't tell me. If I saw something, I will probably get in trouble for helping too much versus never helping. Because I'm always, you already said it. I don't need to say anything else. But that's exactly
absolutely.
it. Don't barriers in your own way. Be helpful. Be kind. Build a personality that people want to be, or build a reputation that people want to be around through how you act and what you do extra.
100%. And Sarah, I gotta tell you, thank you so much for, like, spending time, and thank you for being open enough to talk about these topics, because it's tough. A lot of people, especially this day and age, are afraid to. So you helped a lot of people just by sharing that. And for those who are listening in the audience, I want to hear from you. I don't do this enough, or I don't remind you guys enough. If you're listening to this on Spotify, if you actually scroll down, there's an area for every episode where there's a poll, whether you like the episode or not, but also a comment section. You can comment. Go, just tell me. You can go, and PSA guy, you can go ahead and, like, run your mouth, you know, do the thing. Oh, I thought it was offensive when you buy. Hey, we're just keeping it real, my friends. Just keeping it real. So, Sarah, where can people find you? I know we'll plug you on LinkedIn. That's where people find you.
I'm pretty old school, and all I have is LinkedIn. I had to join Facebook for the robotic council that I wanted to be part of so I could navigate with my surgeons. But I have one friend on there that taught me how to do it. Like, I am so old school, you guys. It's
that's good. Like, no, it's good.
I'm on Facebook. I'm nothing, just LinkedIn. So that's all you can do yet.
We'll get them.
Send me an email to my CONMED email address, and that's not hard to find.
Perfect. So as we kind of wrap up, any sort of last words for the audience?
Have fun. You're going to get one chance to be great, and go at it with all you got. Have fun doing it. Smile. And I changed my life this year by waking up every day with gratitude. And I've always been a very thankful person, but writing it down and thinking about gratitude really takes the edge off of when you get mad at somebody. Or get mad at a situation. Have gratitude, live with gratitude, and you will see the difference in the way your work is produced by what you put out by living that way. So sounds cheesy. No one told me to do it. I started doing it, and it really has made a difference in how I think about things.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. I believe it or not, I do it the same way. And again, it goes back to what you said at the very beginning of the episode. Sometimes just doing simple things with persistence and grit. So Sarah Lincoln, thank you so much for joining us. This is another episode of the State of MedTech. We'll see you all next time. If you haven't already, give the show 5 stars, write a review on Apple. Help us out. We're the #1 show for a reason. I'm your host, Omar Khateeb. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for enjoying another epic episode of the State of MedTech. If you're feeling inspired and love this episode, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on so you never miss an episode. And be sure to give us 5 stars and write a short review because that helps more people discover this amazing community of ours. If you're a company who has a executive that you'd like to be on the show, or perhaps you want to sponsor one of the episodes, shoot us an email at hello@khateebandco.com. Take care, and we'll see you next time.